Ladies and gentlemen, today is really a big pleasure to have Peter Pirner with me. It's we had a really great pre-discussion in the last 10 minutes. It will be a blast today speaking with him. Hi, Peter, how are you?
Hi, Greg. I'm fine. Thank you for having me.
A great pleasure. And as usual, I think it doesn't make sense that I start reading all what you did in your career. And therefore, my simple question, could you please introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm very glad to do that. Actually, I worked something like 25 years in a company which is called Kantar, which is a market research company. And I was always active in the area of customer satisfaction measurement, consumer measurement. Actually, I know all the tools and all the proceedings, how to gather information about customer needs and what they feel. And I had the big luck that Kantar is a huge company, was part of WPP. So I had also global roles. So I had global responsibility for the topic customer experience management or customer satisfaction measurement. I did trainings all around the globe. I visited top clients of Kantar all around the world. I had very specific regional sales responsibility for Southern Europe and Russia and Africa. So I saw the full picture of what happens in the customer experience world for many, many years. And then I returned back to Germany to run the German practice area. And in Germany, Kantar, formerly known as Infratest, is the second biggest player in Germany. So we had all the big DACH companies as our clients. And I had again the pleasure to be as an expert in a position to discuss and challenge some of the solutions they found for their organizations. And after 25 years, there was a reorganization. And I said, well, I've seen everything. I've done everything. I love the company. I've loved what I've done. And I don't want to take part of a reorganization anymore. And so we decided that we find a way that I would leave the company, which I did in all friendship and without any hassle. And then I started to work on the one side in a company my nephew founded, which is a pet accessory company. And he started 7 years ago, and the company became so big that we came into some troubles. And so I also jumped in with some of my seniorities, took over the role of CMO, Chief Technology Officer, Chief Marketing Officer, and Customer Experience Officer. That's more my thing. And at the same time, I thought I don't want to lose contact to the world I had before because I have so many connections and I'm still really passionate about the topic. So, and I always wanted to be a radio moderator, actually. When I started studying, I applied for the job as radio moderator at the Bavarian radio station. I ended up number 8 and they only took 4. And that was really a shame. And after many, many years, I decided, well, I don't care. This time I do my own radio program because I really like voice. I like audio. I like good journalism as you can find it on many podcast stations. And then I started also the podcast CXTalks. And there it was quite helpful that I'm also partner of the Institute of Customer Experience Management, which is a very relevant organization in Germany. And Rainer Kolln, the owner of the institute, asked me if I would like to be a partner of him. So, of course, I'm happy to do that. And so we offer that also as a service in the Institute of Customer Experience Management, that we have this content offer on a regular basis. And this all started 1.5 years ago. And I think today it's now the most successful podcast about customer experience management. It's just in German because we had the discussion, is it in German or not? And so you see, I have many, many aspects in my life. I have seen a lot of things in the past. I still do some things in CX with individual smaller projects for some clients, but mainly now I run a business pet accessories, run my podcast, and I'm active in the community.
I'm really, really glad to have you on this podcast. As you said, you have really an big experience in all the different topics, and two of them I would like to touch them. But before we skip one of these topics, the shop that you mentioned is Petlando for people who living in Germany or in DACH region. It's really interesting. Go on the website, you see that it's really customer experience at its best, and it's
we
very
just
nice.
do B2B business. Actually, we don't have our own shop. We just do B2B. So you can buy that in all the shops in Germany, Austria, Switzerland, Belgium, Netherlands. It's a pure B2B business, but at the same time, we really walk the talk. And that was also one of the key learnings, but maybe at a later point of time, I will bring in some examples there, because this is what I learned. I was used to big organizations. And then all of a sudden we are an organization, we are right now 50 people. So very young, not too much theoretical too much theoretical background on this topic, but they do a lot of things very well, just instinctively. And this is what we sometimes forget in customer experience management, that you can do things right even if you don't have a clue what the theory behind is.
I think it's important is to care about what customer needs. It's the B2B or B2C world, but at the end, if you listen to the customer and then you act on what the customer are saying, then you're already on the right side of the game.
Absolutely.
Thank you. And I think I would like to quickly deep dive on your CXTalks, because it's really an interesting podcast.
Yeah.
And I listened also to the last episode about the pharmacy. That was a really nice one. Thank you very much for that. Where started the idea of having this CXTalks? You mentioned that about the radio, but why specific on CX?
No, because CX actually, as I said, my background is research. So actually, when I left Kantar, I was not obliged anymore to focus all my thinking around a research solution. I noticed that I did that only after a while when I was outside of Kantar. When I thought, well, when I talk to clients, I always talked about actually the measurement area, new technologies you could bring in. And yes, we also talked about strategy and we talked about change. But our core offer was actually rolling out huge customer experience systems, customer voice of the customer systems at a global scale. So which is really a very specific business, and then you add on some smaller local insights pieces. And when I stepped out of Kantar, I thought, well, but the X is so much more. And the more you speak with people, you find out that everybody has a perspective on the X, but it's centered around where he's coming from. And this was for me the reason to say, now you're independent, Peter. Now you can really try to interview people with no intention to sell anything. You can just make the whole picture broad. And it's, for me, it's over the time I also find it very rewarding speaking to people who are passionate about what they are doing. And Jan Reuter is a wonderful example. Actually, I saw a few of his videos on LinkedIn. Only when we started the interview, I found out that he's also a professional speaker. I really did not think that far, because I found that the guy I found really interesting. And he also studied in Munich, so we had things in common. And when he describes what he does at a small level for a pharmacy, this has nothing to do with the business I did in Kantar. Or if Annika Tannebaum talks about leadership in contact centers, this has nothing to do with what we offered as a service. But I know from my discussions with clients that this is key to success of any system. So you really need to understand all the different bits and pieces, and you need to bring the people together. And working in a network, just like the Customer Experience Institute of Customer Experience Management, also allows me to get into contact with people who have an offer that is really distinct to what I've done before in my life. And the only thing what I learned about that is someone who says, I really understand what customer experience is, he's lying because he just understands his perspective. Just be open and listen to many people, because you can take insights from so many different people and perspectives and experiences. And this is what I try to do in the podcast. I just invite people I personally find interesting, uh, and or topics I really want to know something about. So the next podcast will be about the digital city. What is customer experience in a digital city? I would not have done that if I just make a podcast around market research methods in customer experience management.
Sure, and I think this is also what it's interesting in the customer experience science, that you have so many different opportunities, aspects that you can discuss and share. But Peter, now it's really time. Share your secret. How can you be so successful with your podcast? We want to know that.
I don't know. I really don't know. It probably helps that I do that with passion. I really like what I do, and I think people notice that if you like what you do. And I try to make it as professional as possible without having an agency being paid for making it professional. I do everything myself, just like you. And you know that it's also quite some work in post production, and it's some work in preparation. And then it's about treating people in the interview. And I think these are for me, these are the components uh, that needs to be covered really well in order to have a result that is appealing and people notice that people feel well in an interview. And people also notice if there's a structure in the interview. So I don't like those podcasts that just, oh, let's improvise half an hour. No, that doesn't really work. At least for me, it doesn't work. And I think that helped to create basic audience that connects to it. And it's also a niche. It's not just the niche customer experience, it's also the niche customer experience in German, because there are many fantastic podcasts in English. And I thought, try to do it differently, just do it in German. I could do that also in English, but I don't even want to do that in English. Also to link better to the audience in Germany, Austria, and Switzerland, because this is a region which is not really super ahead of everything, very frankly speaking. I've seen African clients that were more ahead than German clients some years ago, in terms of how they structured their organization and all that. But we are growing, and many things are really happening in this area right now. And there are a lot of excellent examples of companies who really work on their systems and on their organizations. And so I thought, well, that's my niche, and I hope that these are the spices that were needed to make it the success it is.
At least you have one fan. It's me, because I am a recurring listener of your podcast. And I think this is one important thing, being a recurring listener and not only once. And thank you very much for naming my podcast as fantastic, because I'm doing it in English. And you said there are fantastic podcasts in English.
I'm free. And I do once a month, I do podcast recommendation. I just recommend the ones I really like, because I listened to something and say, wow, that's cool. For example, I found yours with Annette Funds. I really like that. And I also liked, for example, from Manager Magazine, they made one episode on LinkedIn, and then now everybody says, you're so fantastic, and you're so fantastic. Everybody feel you're fantastic because I tell you you're fantastic, and everybody says, I'm so fantastic. I found that so funny that I said, put that also into this list, because I liked it. And that is actually, it's probably mostly it's me, the lists, and I really like the podcast you made with Annette, and also you can notice that you like what you do, and I think that's the important thing.
Thank you very much, Peter. I will transcribe everything and put that as a feedback.
Yeah, absolutely. So review management. That's the area of review management.
Exactly. Thank you, Peter. I think it's really an outstanding podcast, your CX talks, and you have a global experience. You had a global experience, and now you are focusing on the DACH region, Germany, Austria, and Switzerland. And you already mentioned there are fantastic examples of companies doing customer experience. Before we starting mentioning companies, what's your view of the development of customer experience in our region?
Actually, what I think I know best the German situation. I have some ideas about the situation in Switzerland, which is, from my point of view, companies that are very active in that area are quite international companies, headquarters, which we also serve from Germany. So I've been to headquarters in Switzerland where they have these huge programs, probably mostly based on huge customer feedback systems that need to be introduced into global organizations, or at least at a regional level in huge organizations. And for that reason, in Switzerland, you would find more people coming from all over the places. So the thinking was a bit more advanced, or it was more established. Then you would probably find that in German medium-sized companies. The big ones is also without any discussion. These are the same people. It's just the same breed. What I find is that it's quite logical and easy that you start with voice of the customer programs, because actually you cannot be customer centric if you don't have feedback from a customer. This is just a contradiction in itself. If you don't give your customer the opportunity to tell you what he needs, then you by definition are not customer centric. And the next step then will be, if you understood what he said, what they said, then you decide what you want to fulfill, and then you need to perform. You just need to deliver. So in US, UK, the majority of the VOC programs were already quite mature. These programs were already quite mature, something like 10 years ago. And some of the discussions we had in these countries, we saw then in countries that were heavily influenced by these countries. For example, in Dubai, we had discussions about the optimization of certain programs that were very similar to the things we discussed in the UK or in the United States. The Germans and probably also the Swiss and the Austrians started slightly later, but they also had, in the past, they had some customer satisfaction programs in place. And the biggest difference was that the customer satisfaction programs were done once in a year or every half year. It was not an ongoing tracking, it was anonymous, and it should help you to understand maybe customer segments, maybe specific needs, change of needs over time. And the totally new idea was you now need to have personalized feedback, and you need to push that back into the organization. And if you push something back into the organization and the organization is not prepared, then you kill the goodwill of your clients, because they told you what they want, but there's no one who takes up on their responses. The organization is completely nervous, because if even more so if you start immediately with a bonus system based on customer feedback, which, by the way, I think is total bullshit. But you can overwhelm an organization if you move from the more strategic relationship approach to the ongoing short interview after a transaction. And that was the passion for the new shiny object that was introduced into the DACH region. Also, it's also true for France. It's also true for Italy. It's also true, I would say, also for all the major European markets. They were still in the more strategic perspective, and then we came into the ongoing feedback. And as this is the next step, which does not solve all your problems, neither, but actually this is just the next step, then all the discussions started. And 10 years ago in the US or in the UK, you could have found people with the job title customer experience manager. Today, I would say you can find people in the DACH region with the job title customer experience manager. And yes, everybody complains it's not totally clear what he should do and how much power he should have and how much resources he should have. But actually, that is not a difference to what is going on in the United States or in the UK. That's an ongoing problem. But 5 years ago, it was really very rare that you could find people or you could find roles that you could apply to which had some sort of customer experience management as a role description. And this really makes the difference. And this makes the whole thing very interesting. And this is where that is now moving quick, fast. And of course, it's also supported a bit by the fact that all the technology provider, be it Medallia, be it Maritz, be it Qualtrics, be it Confirm It, be it, there are so many technology platforms, or in Moment, they have a very strong marketing machine. So now everybody feels a bit also the need that they should do something. And now the next big challenge will be to understand that it's not just a technology problem. It is also a technology problem, but it's not just the technology problem. And I think in other countries where you have already implemented a system with ongoing feedback, for example, and you just change the provider, then the situation is already a different situation. And in the UK or US, you now just change the providers. In DACH, you still build these systems in many cases.
I really like what you are saying, because you touched the all phases also of an introduction of such a solution. We spoke about the strategic piece, the operational piece, and not only, let's say, listening, but also acting on what it's doing. And you mentioned something that I really like, and for me is key, and it's always what I'm saying. Technology is the mean and not the solution. With the technology, you can start introducing new solution, getting feedback from the customer, but what is then relevant is what does the company want to achieve, first of all. That's a bit the vision and the strategy, and then also the governance, how it's organized, and that's what you mentioned. What are the roles and responsibilities of a customer experience team, and then coming also to the cultural aspect, that now customers are something like free of charge consultants giving you feedback, and then it's up to you as a company to action on that.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And based on everything what you said, and also seeing, and I share your view that, for example, UK, Dubai, and US, they are one step ahead or several steps ahead compared to us. You already mentioned quite a lot of actionable insights. Do you have an idea what will be the next topics that will come to our region?
I was always wondering, because actually, as now I have my radar broader. In insights, I would say very clearly it will be the return of the qualitative research. It will be, MPS will not be the overwhelming one solution for everything. There will be much more. You will have communities. You will have more qualitative research. You will restart your strategic research, because you will find out that it's a combination of all that. That's the insight piece. On the technology piece, I wonder, I think we will see a lot of software as a service providers or parts of customer experience management. So also Qualtrics or Medallia will develop even more into process management machines. It will, because on all the inside platforms, they're already quite active. So actually, there cannot be too much innovation. You can introduce millions of new statistical methods in a program, but if you don't have the right hypothesis, it really doesn't matter if it's there. And sometimes just trend lines are already so much telling you the situation company is. You don't need highly sophisticated statistic measures that nobody understands. So the logical step to expand will be more into process management. I think what we also would see more is the integration. We talk about that. I mean, we talk about that since I'm 20 years old. This was management information system. I mean, there are always different labels for things. The integration of data and the holistic management system, the holistic management dashboard that helps you with everything. I think we're coming closer and closer to solutions to that. In the beginning, it was just a vision. Now it can be realized. The question is, does that solve all your problems? No, you just have relevant KPIs and you still need to add. But in the past, you could not create these KPIs. Now you can create these KPIs, at least many of them. And also that will be really interesting what we see there. And this happens not only in Germany, this happens all over the places, also in the US. And there are still a lot of promises in the room. But I think we also see now some deliveries. So I'm quite optimistic that there will be things we see. And the topic of organizational development, new ways of working, transforming an organization into these new ways of working will be more and more important, because only then you can adapt to the new needs customers have.
I think this is really key what you are saying, and I am also saying this development. Perhaps to make that a bit understandable, do you have some really good examples, let's name them best practices of companies working on such a roadmap?
I think most of the companies, of the bigger companies, work somewhere in their organizations on these roadmaps. And I've met many departments in big global organizations where all the knowledge was there, but they could not bring it to life because they could not make a relevant enough use case for the organization, or politics just stopped them. So some of these new developments probably sit somewhere in IT, somewhere in CX, somewhere in strategy. And if you're lucky, these departments talk to each other and have the common goal to unite. And this changes with the people working there, or the leaders working in these departments. And it must be very clear, the vision must be very clear that we want to do that as a company. We want to base the success of our company on what we understand of our customers. We want to do everything possible to bring that at all the relevant points in our organization to make that work. And I think probably Amazon, as far as I can see that, it's always brought up as an excellent example. I think Amazon is really an excellent example because they talk also about that, and they always try to improve, and they try things, stop it if it doesn't work. They are very adaptive. This doesn't mean that others don't do that at all. this is just one of the examples I know, and where I really have the feeling that they also walk their talk. But I've seen also, as you've seen also in my podcast, I have also a huge background on the automotive industry, and I know that all the automotive manufacturers have their departments. They work on that, and they try to bring it in the organizations. But these organizations are really complicated because you have country organizations, you have sales and after sales, and this is true for most of the industries. So if you want to bring that to life, then it takes a lot of time, and maybe it frustrates you more than it should, because it's like a Sisyphus work. You just need to do that. It doesn't make the world better if you stop that, then the world will be worse. And probably it will take a lot of effort just to keep things moving. And I think the activity level of an organization for me is more the relevant criterion to say they are in a good way or not. And I think most of the bigger companies do that as they need to do it. The smaller companies do that anyway. Because if they would not do that, it's also much easier. They don't have so many silos. Also, they have silos. If you have a team of 50, you start creating silos. But it's much easier to jump over silos in a small company. And if you have 1,000 employees, you're not a small company anymore, but you can act a bit faster. And if you have someone in management who says, I want that, then this happens. This is not the case in a huge organization where all the decisions need to be politically aligned, and you need to have the buy-in of more people in the management board and all these sort of things.
It's something like a masterclass. Thank you very much, Peter, because you are bringing so many insights, and taking the last two that you mentioned. One is lead by example. The leadership needs supported, and what you mentioned that I really like, and it's also my personal experience. It doesn't make a big difference if you're a big company, if you're a small company. You have different budgets, different tools, but at the end, the feedback of the customer is key. And a big company needs to do that in a more structured way. A really small company, let's say the small shop in the town where we are living, perhaps they ask you, were you happy with your the last thing that you bought? And then you give feedback and you get feedback, and at the end they can improve themselves.
The pharmacy.
Exactly. Yeah. And also closing the loop and concluding this first part of the discussion, you mentioned Amazon, and it's clear. It's always we're always mentioning Amazon as the example. But if they are the best in class, they are in the best in class. And thinking about the last letter that Jeff Bezos wrote to the shareholders, it's really extremely interesting to read it. I learned a lot by reading that, and I suggest also to the community to have a look at it. Now it's time to learn a bit more about you, Peter, and this is what I like from this discussion. It's also the human touch. You are a super expert, and you demonstrate that in the last half an hour. But now we would like to learn a bit more about you. And the first question I would like to ask about you is: you mentioned at the beginning you are active in several fields. How can you ensure to have a satisfactory work-life balance?
I'm in control. Today I'm in control. In Petlando, I'm owner. I own part of the company, and I can decide how much I want to do. There was a deal with my nephew. And CXTalks, if it's too much, I can stop it. And I also want to have a certain degree of freedom to jump on other topics, to discuss with people other topics. For example, right now I'm also working with a Swiss management consultancy, Accelerum, that they have a fantastic product about touchpoint management. Just to understand a bit how we can make that even more digestible for German clients, or does it need to be somehow enhanced to be acceptable for German clients? for me, that is, and I still do not work my 80 hours, which I did in the years before. So actually, probably I worked my part of my work life already, and for that reason, I feel right now I feel quite fine with balancing it out, but it's a challenge for yourself to say, no, fear of missing out. Do I need to be there in order to be then there next time? You don't need to be everywhere. I'm quite, I'm really blessed with having been in so many places already, and so for that reason, I'm actually I also do some coaching to people who are new in some of their positions. Just saying, did you think about that? Did you think about that? This is something I did before also in Kantar. So I was mentor and coach there, and now I do that again, just because I like it, because I find it really fascinating seeing 27-year-old guys developing a business, or 30-year-old high potentials having the first time in their life that someone says, no, this is now end of your career, which is not true, but those ambitions one will have the first frustrations in their jobs in their 30s, or they are extremely successful, then they have it 5 years later. Doesn't matter, but you will start having frustrations in your career. I have that myself as well. And as long as you can enrich your life with these different aspects, without the goal, I need to be the most successful man in the world in this organization, this gives you also the calmness just to say, no, today I don't want to do anything. Today I just want to be in the sun.
I fully agree with you, and we already have a topic for the next podcast: definition of success, because exactly what you were saying.
Yeah, what is success? But it's a good discussion, because what is success, and it changes over time. I mean, if you would have asked me 20 years ago, I would have defined it completely different. And it's absolutely the right of the young people, and I think it's now the time of the people in the 30s and 40s to change the organization, to change the world. It's not the guys in their 60s or in their 70s who should run organizations, and they should not even run the countries, as we've seen in the past.
Exactly.
Yeah.
A discussion with Pascal Kaufmann. He was telling me that the world belongs to the younger generation. We should ask the right question and give them direction with our experiences. And I think this is key. And as you said, for me, success 10 years ago, 15 years ago was different than now. For me now, it's also success opening the door and having quality time with my family, with my small son. And before that, I was not aware that it's also success.
Yeah.
Thank you, Peter. And now the next question would be, is there a book that you would suggest to the audience and say, this is a book you should read because I learned something, or it's full of insights?
I really need to disappoint you. Actually, when I wrote my PhD thesis, I read so many books that I said, two things I learned. I don't want to read standard books anymore, and I don't want to write a standard book anymore. I've done that, I've been there, I don't want to do that anymore. And frankly speaking, I don't read these long, I don't read the books. What I do read is articles, posts, because I think I like if people need to condense their insights, because in a book you just need to pump it up so that you end up with at least 120 pages. And in reality, the key messages are always very short. Done there, seen that. Been there, seen that. And so for that reason, I still really like HBR, Harvard Business Review. They have great content, and I follow that, and some other publications and posts. And for that reason, very honestly, I could not give you a good recommendation of books. Probably you are the better choice if I ask you. By the way, what is your last book that you really enjoyed?
First of all, supporting you, then I would say let's suggest CXTalks as a podcast, and I think this is something that helps. I am trying to differentiate. As you said, I really like also to reading podcast and so on, because you need to really condensate your message. What I am reading now is a book of Shep, The Convenience Revolution. And there I'm from Shep, what I really like is the way how he's writing with these great examples. And then after the example, also the learnings. And then you have really a bigger overview what it's happening also in the companies that are state of the art already in customer experience. Therefore, this is my suggestion. Thank you for the question.
Thank you for helping me out with a question on the book.
And for sure, if you are asking, my recommendation is Customer Experience 3, because I am co-author of this book. We published that in March, and therefore I need to mention that. Now, joke aside, if Peter, if somebody would like to contact you, what's the best way to contact you?
To the website www.cx-talks.com via LinkedIn. That's the best way. Very happy for any kind of discussions, whatever it is. Just ask me. I say no if I don't like to, and I say yes if I love.
It's also how I contacted you through LinkedIn, and it's great to have such discussions.
Yeah, but actually, I think that's also the nice thing about LinkedIn. In the last year, I met so many people, and you're one of them, because actually I saw what you've done, so I somehow had an idea. But the nice thing is, only after this podcast and after having seen you, I have a better feeling for the person behind. And that's a nice thing in podcasting, that you learn interesting people, and after that, you have a different relation than before.
Sure, and this is what I really like. And we are coming to the last question. Is the question I always ask, and this is Peter, golden nugget. It's something that we already discussed, or something that you would like to share with the audience that we didn't discuss, and it's the last piece of wisdom from you.
First of all, I'm not a wise guy, and there is not the one solution. If you meet someone who says, this is the one solution, not true, just throw him out. There is nothing like the one solution. If he asks you, what is your problem? And he says, well, my solution might solve you parts of the solution. That brings you much further down the road than listening to someone that I have solution for all the problems you have in this area. That is what I learned in my past. And this is why customer experience management, if you understand that as broad as it is, then it's logical that there cannot be just one single solution.
Thank you very much, Peter. And as usual, I am not commenting your golden nugget, because it's Peter golden nugget. The last thing I want to say is thank you very much for your time, Peter. Also during your vacation.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
It was a great pleasure. And also to the audience, I hope that you enjoyed this discussion as much as I did, because it was really an outstanding discussion. And thank you very much. Grazie mille. Arrivederci. If you enjoyed this episode, please share the word of mouth, subscribe it, share it. Until the next episode, please don't forget, we are not in a B2B or B2C business, we are in a human-to-human environment. Thank you!